At 1 a.m. my stepbrother stabbed me. My parents laughed, until the judge's sentence turned their celebration into silence. I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open at 1 a.m. Before I could scream, my stepbrother Damien was on top of me, and I felt the cold steel pierce through my shoulder. The pain was blinding white-hot, like someone had shoved a branding iron straight through my flesh. I gasped, choking on my own breath as warm blood spread across my white sheets. "That's for getting me grounded," Damien hissed, twisting the kitchen knife before yanking it out. I managed to stumble out of bed, clutching my shoulder as blood poured between my fingers. My vision blurred as I staggered down the hallway, leaving a trail of crimson drops on the hardwood floor. I could hear Damien's footsteps behind me, casual, unhurried, like he'd just finished a normal chore. "Mom. Dad." I screamed, bursting into their bedroom. My mother, Diane, looked up from her phone with the same expression she always wore when I interrupted her, pure annoyance. My stepfather, Greg, didn't even glance away from the television mounted on their wall. "Damien stabbed me," I gasped, my knees buckling. "Please, I need to go to the hospital. I'm bleeding." Diane rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "Oh, here we go again with the drama, Talia. What did you do to provoke him this time? Look at my shoulder." I pulled my blood-soaked hand away, and the gash was clearly visible, deep enough that I could see tissue beneath the split skin. Greg finally turned his head, took one look at me, and laughed. Actually laughed. "Kids and their roughhousing. You'll be fine. Go put a bandage on it and stop being so theatrical." "I need stitches," I whispered, my legs giving out. I crumpled to the floor, the room spinning around me. "Please. You need to stop causing problems in this family," Diane snapped. She stood up, stepping over me like I was a piece of furniture. "Clean up that blood before it stains. And Talia? If you wake us up again tonight, you'll be sleeping in the garage." Damien appeared in the doorway, the knife still in his hand, a smirk playing on his lips. He was 17, 2 years older than me, and he'd made my life a living nightmare since his father married my mother 3 years ago. This wasn't the first time he'd hurt me. It was just the first time he'd used a weapon. "She fell," Damien said smoothly, looking at his father. "I told her not to run in the dark, but you know how clumsy she is." Greg nodded approvingly. "That's my boy. Always looking out for his sister." I pressed my good hand against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding as I crawled back to my room. My phone. I needed my phone. But when I finally made it to my nightstand, I discovered Damien had smashed it. The screen was shattered into a spider web of cracks, completely unusable. I spent the rest of that night stuffing tissues into my wound, biting down on my pillow to muffle my sobs. By morning, my entire shirt was stiff with dried blood, and I could barely move my left arm. That's when I knew, if I didn't do something, Damien was going to kill me. And my parents would help him get away with it. I wore a thick hoodie to school despite the Arizona heat, layering it over a long-sleeved shirt to hide the blood that had seeped through my makeshift bandages. Every movement sent lightning bolts of pain through my shoulder, and I could feel fresh blood trickling down my arm during first period. My chemistry teacher, Mr. Holloway, kept glancing at me with concern as I hunched over my desk, my face pale and sweating. "Talia, are you feeling all right?" he asked after class. "Just tired," I mumbled, clutching my books against my chest to hide the growing stain. By third period, I was running a fever. The wound was infected. I could see the angry red streaks radiating from the gash when I checked it in the bathroom. The edges were swollen and hot to the touch, and a foul-smelling pus had begun seeping out. I knew enough from health class to know this was bad. Really bad. I made it halfway through lunch before I collapsed in the cafeteria. I woke up in the nurse's office, with Mrs. Brennan, the school nurse, leaning over me with a blood pressure cuff. Her kind brown eyes widened as she noticed my hoodie sleeve, now completely soaked through with blood and pus. "Sweetheart, I need to see your arm," she said gently. I shook my head, terror flooding through me. "I'm fine. I just need to rest." "Talia, you're burning up with fever, and you're bleeding through your clothes. I need to see what's going on." Her voice was firm but compassionate. When I didn't move, she carefully reached for my sleeve. I didn't have the strength to fight her. She peeled back the layers of clothing, and I heard her sharp intake of breath. "Dear God," she whispered. "Who did this to you?" The wound looked worse in the fluorescent light, puffy, inflamed, with dark purple bruising spreading across my shoulder. The puncture was deep, clearly made by something sharp and deliberate. There was no way this was an accident. I fell, I said automatically, the lie my parents had trained into me over 3 years. Mrs. Brennan's jaw tightened. She'd been a nurse for 25 years and had seen every kind of injury imaginable. She knew a stab wound when she saw one. Talia, I'm calling an ambulance. This wound is severely infected, and you need immediate medical attention. Then I'm calling the police. No. I tried to sit up, panic making my heart race. Please, you don't understand. My parents will be so angry. Damien will. Damien did this? Her voice was steel now. I started crying, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. He stabbed me at 1 a.m. My parents saw it and laughed. They wouldn't take me to the hospital. They said I was being dramatic. Mrs. Brennan's face went white, then red with fury. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911, never taking her eyes off me. This is Eleanor Brennan, school nurse at Phoenix Ridge High School. I have a 15-year-old girl with an infected stab wound, suspected abuse, suspected assault. I need an ambulance and police immediately. While we waited, she cleaned my wound as best she could, wincing at how I whimpered with every touch. You're incredibly brave, Talia. And I promise you, no one is going to hurt you again. The paramedics arrived within 10 minutes, and right behind them were 2 police officers. One was a woman with sharp features and sharper eyes, Detective Campbell. The other was a younger man named Officer Torres who looked at my wound and immediately radioed for backup. We need to photograph this before we transport her, Detective Campbell said, pulling out a camera. Talia, I know you're in pain, but these photos might save your life. Can you tell me exactly what happened? So I did. I told them everything, about Damien's years of abuse, the cigarette burns on my ribs, the times he'd pushed me down the stairs, the bruises my parents ignored. I told them about the knife, about my mother stepping over me, about my father's laughter. Detective Campbell's expression never changed, but I saw her knuckles go white as she gripped her pen. The emergency room doctor, Dr. Hernandez, looked at my wound and immediately ordered 4 antibiotics and emergency surgery to clean out the infection. I was septic, the infection had spread to my bloodstream, and I could have died within days if Mrs. Brennan hadn't intervened. You're lucky to be alive, Dr. Hernandez told me as they prepped me for surgery. Another day or 2, and we'd be looking at amputation or worse. I woke up from surgery with my shoulder bandaged and stitched, my arm in a sling, and Detective Campbell sitting beside my hospital bed. Your parents are in the waiting room, she said. They're demanding to see you and threatening to sue the hospital, the school, and everyone involved. Your mother called you a liar at least 15 times. My heart sank. They're going to make me go back. No, they're not. Detective Campbell leaned forward. Talia, we arrested your stepbrother 2 hours ago. He's being charged as an adult with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, attempted murder, and child abuse. We found your blood on the knife. He didn't even bother to clean it properly. It was in his nightstand, like a trophy. I started crying again, but this time from relief. As for your parents, she continued, they're being charged with child endangerment and neglect. They knew you were seriously injured and refused medical care. That's a felony in Arizona. And based on what you've told us and what we found when we searched your house, there will be additional charges. What did you find? I whispered. Her jaw clenched. Your bedroom door has scratches on it like someone tried to break in multiple times. We found cigarette burns on your mattress, matching the scars on your body. We found your broken phone. And we found Damien's journal where he wrote about hurting you in detail, what he called his experiments, to see how much pain you could take. I felt sick. 6 months later, I sat in a courtroom wearing my best dress, a simple navy blue one that my foster mother, Angela, had bought me. Angela was a social worker who specialized in trauma cases, and she'd been fostering me since I was released from a hospital. For the first time in 3 years, I felt safe. Damien sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed. He looked smaller somehow, less terrifying. My mother and stepfather sat in the gallery behind him, both of them glaring at me like I was the criminal. Judge Morrison, a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, presided over the hearing. Damien had already been found guilty by a jury. Today was sentencing. The prosecutor, Ms. Alvarez, presented the evidence: the knife, the photos of my wound, Damien's journal, medical reports documenting years of abuse. She presented testimony from Mrs. Brennan, Dr. Hernandez, and Detective Campbell. She showed the jury the cigarette burn scars on my ribs, the places where Damien had stubbed out his cigarettes on my skin while my parents were at work. Then it was time for victim impact statements. I walked to the witness stand on shaking legs. Angela squeezed my hand before I left her side. I was 15 years old when my stepbrother stabbed me, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. I was bleeding, terrified, and my parents laughed. They told me to put a bandage on it. They chose him over me, over my safety, over my life. I looked directly at Damien. He wouldn't meet my eyes. You took 3 years of my life. You made me afraid to sleep, afraid to eat, afraid to exist in my own home. You hurt me because you could, because you enjoyed it, because no one stopped you. Then I turned to my mother. And you let him. Judge Morrison adjusted her glasses and picked up a stack of papers. The courtroom went silent. Damien Foster, she began, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. I have presided over juvenile and adult criminal cases for 23 years. In that time, I have seen many disturbing acts. But the calculated cruelty you displayed toward your stepsister is among the most chilling. My mother started to stand, probably to defend him, but a bailiff motioned her to sit down. The evidence presented shows a pattern of escalating violence, Judge Morrison continued. The cigarette burns, the physical assaults, the psychological torture, and finally, the stabbing that nearly cost Talia her life. Your own journal entries demonstrate that you enjoyed causing her pain. You wrote, and I quote, "It's fun to see how much she can take before she cries." Damien shifted in his seat, still refusing to look up. You were 17 years old at the time of the stabbing, old enough to understand right from wrong, old enough to face adult consequences. The jury has found you guilty of attempted murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and multiple counts of child abuse. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. I am sentencing you to 25 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for the first 15 years. You will also be required to register as a violent offender upon release and will be prohibited from contact with the victim for life. My mother screamed. Actually screamed. He's just a boy. She's lying. She's always been a manipulative little. Judge Morrison slammed her gavel. Mrs. Foster, one more outburst and you will be removed from this courtroom. But she wasn't done. As for you, Diane and Gregory Foster, you enabled this abuse. You witnessed your daughter bleeding from a stab wound and refused medical care. You prioritized protecting your son over the life of a child in your care. Greg finally spoke up. She's not my daughter. I don't owe her anything. The judge's eyes flashed with fury. You took on legal responsibility for her when you married her mother. The law doesn't care about your feelings. You are being sentenced to 5 years in prison for child endangerment and neglect. Diane Foster, as the biological parent who had primary custody, your sentence is 7 years. My mother's face went purple with rage, but the bailiffs were already moving toward them. 2 years have passed since that day in court. I'm 17 now, still living with Angela, who started adoption proceedings 6 months ago. I'm a senior at a new high school where nobody knows my past unless I choose to tell them. Therapy has been hard. Dr. Warren, my therapist, specializes in trauma and PTSD. We meet twice a week, and slowly, I'm learning that not all families hurt each other. I'm learning that I deserved protection, love, safety, all the things my mother should have given me. I still have nightmares about that night, about waking up to Damien standing over me with the knife. But Angela bought me a lock for my bedroom door, and gradually, the nightmares are getting less frequent. Last month, I gave a speech at a conference for social workers and mandated reporters, people like teachers and nurses who are required by law to report suspected abuse. Mrs. Brennan was there, and afterward, she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. You saved my life, I told her. You saved your own life by being brave enough to tell the truth, she replied. I've started volunteering at a crisis hotline for teenagers in abusive situations. Once a week, I answer calls from kids who sound like I did 2 years ago, scared, hurt, desperate. I tell them what I wish someone had told me, that they deserve better, that help exists, that speaking up isn't betrayal. One girl called last week, sobbing about her stepfather. But if I tell, I'll ruin the family, she whispered. You won't ruin it, I said firmly. It's already ruined. You'll just be honest about it. Angela says I'm remarkably resilient. I don't always feel resilient. Some days I'm angry, furious at my mother for choosing a man over her own daughter, furious at Greg for treating me like I was disposable, furious at Damien for stealing my childhood. But I'm also learning to be proud. I survived. I spoke up. I didn't let them bury my story. Today is my 18th birthday, and I'm standing in front of a judge again, but this time, it's for something beautiful. Judge Morrison, the same judge who sentenced my family, is presiding over my adoption hearing. Talia, she says, smiling for the first time since I met her, do you consent to the adoption by Angela Patricia Rhodes? Yes, Your Honor, I say, my voice strong and clear. Angela is crying happy tears beside me. She's 42, never married, and she's told me repeatedly that I'm the daughter she always wanted. At first, I didn't believe her. How could anyone want me after what my own mother did? But Angela has proven it every single day for 2 years. She showed up to every therapy appointment, every court date, every school event. She learned to make my favorite foods, sat with me through panic attacks, and never once made me feel like I was a burden. Then it is my honor, Judge Morrison says, to grant this adoption. Talia Rhodes, congratulations on your new family. The courtroom, filled with Angela's friends, Mrs. Brennan, Detective Campbell, Dr. Warren, and even some kids I've helped through the crisis hotline, erupts in applause. Later, at the small celebration Angela threw at her house, I find myself on the back porch, looking at the stars. Detective Campbell joins me, holding a cup of coffee. I've been doing this job for 16 years, she says quietly. Your case haunted me. I kept thinking about what would have happened if that school nurse hadn't noticed, if you'd been too scared to tell the truth. I almost was, I admit. But you weren't. And because of you, we started training programs in our department specifically about recognizing familial abuse patterns. We've rescued 11 kids in the past 2 years using protocols we developed from your case. I feel tears prick my eyes. Really? Really? You didn't just save yourself, Talia. You saved them too. Inside, I can hear Angela laughing with her friends, and someone's turned on music. It's warm and bright and safe. Everything my old house never was. I get letters sometimes, forwarded through my lawyer. My mother writes from prison, insisting she's the victim, that I ruined her life, that I'm an ungrateful liar. I don't read them anymore. Dr. Warren helped me understand that I can't fix people who don't want to be fixed, and I don't owe my mother forgiveness just because she gave birth to me. Damien wrote once, too. The letter was short. I'm sorry for what I did. I was messed up. I hope you can forgive me someday. I wrote back, but I never sent it. In the letter I said, I don't forgive you. Maybe I will someday, maybe I won't. But either way, I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to build a life you can never touch. That's the best revenge I could ask for. 3 months from now, I start college at Northern Arizona University. I'm going to study social work, just like Angela. I want to help kids like me, kids who think no one will believe them, kids who've been trained to stay silent. I learned something important through all of this. Speaking up is terrifying, but silence is deadly. That night when I stumbled into my parents' room, bleeding and begging for help, I learned what betrayal really looks like. But I also learned what love looks like. It looks like a school nurse who refused to look away, a detective who fought for justice, a foster mother who became my real mom, and a judge who made sure the people who hurt me faced consequences. My name is Talia Rhodes. I'm 18 years old. My stepbrother stabbed me at 1 a.m., and my parents laughed. But I got the last laugh. And I'm never going to stop laughing, because I'm free, I'm loved, and I survived.